Hi.
Short Bus Debate Club. It's a bus rolling.
I can get on board. Hello, I'm Darren Jolly.
It's time to get this short bus started. So let's roll and on with the show. Hello, welcome to Short Bus Debate Club, part 2 of Entertainment and Taxes. Taxes in Entertainment.
Texas, part 2.
Fuck, now my levels are fucked.
How could you fuck up your levels?
I don't know, dude. I have no idea. We need to get those parabolics. I think that'll fix a lot of our issues.
It's like a bad magic trick where somebody becomes silent. Carry on.
Sometimes that's a good magic trick. I don't know why I was talking like Elmer Fudd.
You've been out of a revolution or a relationship now for long enough that you can't say that right now.
What, twig?
No, that to be able to make a person.
Oh. Yeah. Charlie Brown's teacher. See, I wonder if any of our listeners know what that is when you go wah, 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 wah.
Well, you got to be able to have some concept of reference. Anybody that's going to listen to it, my whole existence is an illusion. You know, I mean, yours does too. You refer to a lot of things, dude.
Most of our stuff, or most of our listeners are, at least from the demographics I can track, are at least 35. We've got a few that are in that 18 to 24.
But those are all international people.
Generally, yeah.
Fucking weird, dude.
I still think that they're military, and that would explain their age and where they're located.
Look, you don't have to give us any information, but send us a DM. You don't have to tell us anything else other than that. We're just curious to know. Like the Filipino person that keeps listening in the Philippines. What is it that interests you about the stupid shit that comes out of our mouths?
And most of it is stupid shit.
India, the UK.
Yeah, the military thing doesn't follow with India.
Not at all. Yeah,
but with the Philippines, it does.
The UK, it could play out too.
Yeah, and that one in Italy. Anyway,
we have military all through Europe, Western Europe. Yeah,
right.
Tons and tons. Yeah.
And
okay. Eastern Europe, for that matter. Now.
And what's that place called? The Ukraine? Oh yeah. So taxes. We had kind of talked before we started recording this about some of the stuff we're going to talk about because, of course, I've seen a movie and Darren hasn't seen that one yet. And I'm not saying that every time I'm the one watching and he hasn't seen it, but with this particular one, that is the case. So The Patriot, I think we can relate to taxes specifically.
The Teabaggers.
Because of history. Again, we were talking about the Adam Sandler formula where he just, he did Happy Gilmore and then changed it to football and did The Waterboy. I think Mel Gibson did Braveheart and then changed it to America and did The Patriot. Because they were almost the same exact fucking movie. The difference is that there were cannons in The Patriot, and they were upset about the crown fucking them, but it was in a different way than they did the Scottish and Braveheart.
The whole taxation without representation shit, sort of.
Yes, that was a big part of it, but they were so upset about it
that 1776?
It started a war.
It's supposed to be during the Revolutionary War when it happens in The Patriot.
So it's right before the Revolutionary War because the entire country, or I should say all of the colonies, are getting all upset. Stamp Act, Tea Act, all of the different stuff. The soldiers being able to just crash in their house, little things like that. So it's right before the Revolutionary War.
It says it's in 1776. So when you say it's right before, it's really
right before. Yeah. Because so that's the thing that kind of brings Mel Gibson into it, because the whole time, so Mel Gibson had been married and he had like, I don't know, 24 kids or some shit. Because back then you had a lot more kids to
You had to
help,
have somebody to work the farm.
right,
Yeah.
work the farm, all of that good stuff. So he had like 24 kids. His oldest was played by Heath Ledger, and Mel Gibson did not want to go to another war because he had fought in the French Indian War, and I don't know, he had fought for the crown before, and he didn't want to do it or fight against the crown. But a lot of that was because his wife had died, so he was the only one to take care of the kids. So if he could avoid war, he would. Heath Ledger, like I said, was his oldest kid. I think he was 17. He, without talking to his dad first, went and enlisted for the Americans. And on his farm, because then the war started, and on his farm, he was taking care of both soldiers from fighting for the crown and soldiers fighting for future America. And he was taking care of the wounded for both. Well, then some guy comes in, badass British soldier, is being kind of a dick. He tells him to kill all the Americans. One of the people that is wounded on the farm is Heath Ledger. Then they try to kill him because he's a spy. Anyway, the son ends up dying, and that's kind of what throws Mel Gibson into the fight. Is, you know, the kid dying and them
You said he was
burning
French.
his
You said he
farm.
was a French Indian War hero. Like he had a reputation.
Yeah, he had a nickname. They called him the Ghost because of, he was such a badass. Like, he would kill 47 people and then you'd never see him.
Giving it the old in out. Okay.
Right, just in and out, slit your throat. But they started calling him the Ghost again during this little.
So who was taking care of the 23 kids he had left?
His wife had a sister, and all of the black people that worked on his land were not slaves. They were free. I guess he paid them, but they had their homes down on the Carolina coast. And so first the kids went to the sister's house. Then they went to burn the sister's house down. And so they all ran away to the Carolina coast and hid with the black people. And like I said, they all loved his family because they kind of treated them like family. Again, like the British guy, when he showed up before he burned everything down, he said, if you come and fight for the crown, then we'll free you. You won't be a slave anymore. And they said, well, we're not slaves now.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how that would have worked in that time frame.
That's some real revisionist history.
There's there's 10 black people that are free.
Yeah.
And the rest of the fucking colonies are slave states, and these 10 are free.
In 1776, there were quite a few slaves in the North, I think, too.
Yeah. Yeah. But they were in the South.
Yeah,
they were in,
which makes it even more pronounced because the agrarian sort of like economies lended itself to a certain type of political economy, which did not bode well for people with dark skin. That's for sure.
No. But for the movie, it ended up working. How they came up with that, I don't know. Maybe that was during the time where everybody was calling Mel Gibson a racist, and he's like, fuck that, I'm not a racist. I'm going to show him I'm not a racist. I'm going to have a bunch of black people in my new movie, and instead of having them be slaves, they're going to be free.
I'm going to commit this act of revisionist history where we're going to pretend that there was a noble white man who said, generally, like, I don't like conversations like this, but it is kind of funny in this context where that, maybe something like that could have happened here and there a little bit. I'm sure that there were some people that were better than other people. Like, there weren't people that were all at the same level of evil,
I have no doubt that there were good people, but my doubt is like how you put the inner workings into effect. Like, because I told you that they went to stay
in the coast,
on the coast,
which was still in the South,
right? Which means that you still had to get from work to your house. And so how do you do that without
logistically it's gonna because people are gonna be like, what is going on? This guy's upsetting the balance of power in this area. We gotta make sure that he understands that.
Or at the very minimum, why are these black people walking down the street by themselves?
Yeah. On the most basic level. It does sound like a white person trying to feel better about getting called a racist, probably, or something like that. So.
And I don't know if that's what really happened or not, but it could have been because, maybe they were trying to appeal to the woke crowd on some level back then.
In 2000? Were there wokies in 2000?
Well, not as many, but I'm sure that there were, because, we've had people complaining about stupid shit for a really long time.
Well, that doesn't mean anything. At least in the context of that specific word. So, but having said that, so tax is what precipitated the and wanting to sort of liberate the people from the yoke of British control, and that definitely directly connected to tax. One other thing that you said, because you talked about Braveheart, that's like, you think about tax during that time period. Anybody that didn't own land, and you basically worked for the people that owned the land, everything that you grew became a percentage of that became tax. And that's for all intents and purposes what your existence was rooted in. So, like, you think about tax as being construed in present day, or even during Al Capone and the Untouchables and stuff like that, and then you think about the way that it was when there were like serfs, and one thing that I think, of course, everybody, like, if they're like Braveheart dorks, they make a reference to prima nocta, the ways in which the nobility were able to, if you can't get them out, then breed them out,
Right.
You know what the problem is with Scots? There are too many of them, if you can't get them out, then breed them out. So we think about tax in a certain way right now. It was functioning in a certain way in 1776, but it was definitely functioning in a totally different way during the pre-Renaissance, for all intents and purposes, the Dark Ages, in Braveheart times. But it was there. What was the other historical one that we were talking about? Oh, Robin Hood, of course, yeah. So and that was all about the Sheriff of Nottingham and them told, like, King Richard is out, doing his thing with the Crusades, benevolent King Richard killing fucking
Muslims,
and anybody that was not white in that area, but probably Jewish people as well, who knows? Yeah,
I wouldn't doubt
anybody that was.
I would say anybody that wasn't Christian at the time.
Yeah. So, but back here, the bullshit was all, the Sheriff of Nottingham kept increasing taxes, and then Robin Hood came to be what he was. And you can pick any number of movies, you can have the really Hollywood version with Kevin Costner, or the one with Russell Crowe, which was more supposed to end. Who played the Maid Marian in that one? She's a good actress. I can't remember. Say something.
I don't know. I didn't watch the Russell Crowe version, but since you're saying any number, you could talk about the Mel Brooks Robin Hood Men in Tights, and that one had that was Dave Chappelle, right?
Was he in that? Oh, that's fucking funny.
Pretty sure.
Kate Blanchett played in the Russell Crowe one. Let's see. Dave Chappelle?
I'm not positive.
Fucking A, yeah, dude. He was Achu.
Yeah.
I can't believe that he was in that. That's hilarious. A lot of crazy. I mean, of course, Carrie, whatever Elvis. I can't say his name right. The dude from As You
Princess
Wish.
Bride.
Yeah, The Princess Bride. Richard
Yeah.
Lewis. Dave motherfucking Chappelle. A bunch of funny people, dude.
Yeah, Mel Brooks. I mean, he makes some funny stuff, but I mean, because if you've ever read the book, which I haven't in a long time, but I read it when I was a kid, um, the story pretty much stays the same. I mean, you've got Robin, you've got the sheriff of Nottingham and all of his henchmen, and then you've got everybody that Robin met
You got if you
in
say
the
Robin, you
forest.
got to say Robin
Robin Hood. Sorry.
and his merry men. You know,
Yeah, Little
Will
John,
Scarlet, Little John. Yeah,
the abbot.
yeah. Well, what was his name? The one that drank a lot of booze. I mean,
Yeah.
he was an alcoholic.
And I
So
should know his name. And it wasn't an abbot, he was a monk, I guess.
Star Trek: The Next Generation did a Robin Hood episode, and Worf says, "I am not a merry man." Really, really, really funny. Loxley, he died quick. I can't. How come I can't find the guy that played? There's Little John. Friar Tuck. Friar Tuck.
Oh, I guess so. He wasn't even a monk. He was a friar.
Yeah, and a friar who knew how to make really good mead.
That has differed from movie to movie also, because in some of them it's mead, and some of it's wine. Which I know mead is honey wine, but
it's important that we get the alcohol consumption and production correct,
because they would have taxed the shit out of it, I'm sure. I think it's funny that you called that historical, though.
Well,
in the past,
there were things that were going on there, but all this shit is. I mean, in Braveheart, William Wallace is not. I mean, that is such a fucking Hollywoodized discussion of that. I mean, it was about this little place that had a bridge. I mean, if you read about the actual history of it, it was not this grandiose. Let's throw our fucking sword in the air and a little stick in the ground, and
You mean the battle? Or what? Which is the little place that had a bridge?
Yeah, that battle. There was a bridge. There was some sort of bridge that they were fighting over. It's been a while since I've looked back at it, but I watched Braveheart one time 10 years ago, and I was like, okay, so who the fuck really is William Wallace? And then you go use the internet and look and see who he was. I mean, all this stuff is Hollywoodized, the way that we look at it. But it is important to understand that taxes as an institution have been a huge part of the history of, at least, I mean, I'm sure that you pay tribute to, when there's power, you pay tribute to everything, no matter what. If somebody's in power, they're going to ask you for, you grow some shit. If you're in China, you grow some rice. I'm going to take some of your fucking rice. If you're, here, you're going to take some of their corn. If it's Mexico, yeah, it's going to be maize. They're going to take your fucking maize.
Or quinoa.
Yeah, your quinoa. Yeah, there you go.
Well, in Mexico, they're huge on quinoa now. I don't know why.
It's healthy shit. I mean,
I guess that's part of it.
I don't know that,
especially since everybody has to eat superfoods now.
Well, and in Mexico, maybe it's like the thing, like where a person, when they go to get a Big Mac, and then they get a diet, like they get a Big Mac value meal and they get a Diet Coke. So like, we're gonna make some quinoa for dinner, but we're gonna cook it in pork fat. We're gonna dump it in some lard.
I'll have the carnitas, except instead of pork, can you use quinoa?
But make sure to cook it in that pork fat. Quinoa with flavor.
Is that all we've got for historical stuff? I mean, I know you mentioned the Corsican brothers, which I don't remember them ever talking about taxes.
But every time I did a search on movies with taxes, the Corsican brothers came up. I mean, you said it's during the French Revolution.
Yeah, you probably should have watched it then.
Dude, I have so much time in the day, to do this and to do that. I'm not going to do it watching the Corsican brothers. I'll watch the Corsican brothers at some other point in time, but like I mean, I was trying to rewatch Say Anything. I haven't seen that movie in 100 years. I hadn't thought about watching Shawshank Redemption from a tax perspective specifically. So, and I knew all those details, but I wanted to do that. I hadn't watched Untouchables for a veritable fucking eternity. I had fallen asleep listening to it about a year ago, but I was like, you know what? Since that's what they fucking busted Al Capone for, and it's funny because at the beginning when they're talking, like, and of course I'm sure this is a Hollywood thing too, because you have to narrativize things to where there's foreshadow and the resulting sort of like outcome plays out in the last moments. But ultimately, the guy with the glasses, the one that gets killed in the elevator, and so where they put touchable on the in his blood on the elevator wall. That guy's like, dude, I don't think he's paid taxes forever. We need to go after this tax angle. And first Elliot Ness is like, no, we're not gonna go after it. I mean, it's kind of like the same thing in Amistad where when Matthew McConaughey comes to say, well, we need to talk about this from a perspective of property. And he says, this war is going to be waged on the field of righteousness. And he says, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but the only way you're going to win this is by doing it in a legal way where you're dealing with legal questions that are functional. Like, and this is the same thing that the guy was saying. Like, you're never going to get enough people to come at him. And besides, the Volstead Act was such a weak, I mean, like weed in the United States. It's such a weak, and in some places, obviously, weed is a lot harder than it is in, like you get in trouble for it a lot more down south than you will in tons of other places in the U.S. But the Volstead Act was never, my fucking great grandfather on my fucking mom's side made bathtub gin. I mean, this was just life back then. You buy it or you make it, you make a little bit extra and you sell it. I mean, so fucking funny. Like they ask Elliot Ness at the end of the movie, what would you do if they made liquor legal tomorrow? He said, I'd have a drink. But I mean, again, it's sort of like that ridiculous rule of law argument, but that's sort of who Elliot Ness was. He believed in these very specific things and developed a reputation that turned into a mythology where everybody in history, because he was tied to the busting of Al Capone.
Well, I'm sure he was drinking during
just like
this
everybody,
whole thing.
Just like everybody. But that's my point. If you're going to get him, you're going to get him for his business practices. You're not going to get him for the thing that we all know is absolutely absurd with regards to legality in the first place.
Well, but I don't think that they were necessarily even trying to bust him for booze. I know that for a while they were trying to bust him for murder, but you're not going to get him on that either.
The cops were all on his side. He had everybody under. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Cops, witnesses. Yeah. I mean, if there was a witness, you're not going to get them to testify
because they know they're fucking
because it's Al Capone.
Yeah.
So
when I was saying that, yeah, I guess I wasn't saying that right in the sense that you can only get them on things where you don't have to have somebody else collaborating for the most part, except you did have to have the bookkeeper,
Yeah, or at least the ledger that showed it.
But you needed to have somebody that was capable of extrapolating the meaning from the ledger because everything was written down on it was written in code. It looked like so.
Yeah. He was in Alcatraz for a really long time. I mean, he fucking died there, right? They didn't let him out to where he went back to whatever.
No, he died in
Cicero.
He died in prison, but when he died, I don't think how long he hadn't been there for very long. I don't think though.
I thought he was there for years and years before he. Well, maybe not, because he had syphilis when he went in. How long does syphilis take to kill you? I know you start going crazy after a little while, but I don't know any of the time frames on it.
Tax evasion.
I think after he died, they closed Alcatraz down.
After he died, really?
Yeah.
Trying to imprisonment. So Capone was sent to Atlanta, U.S. Penitentiary in May of 1932 at age 33. When did he die? He was paroled in November 16th, 1939. He was released from prison on November 16th, and outpatient care at the 1942 after mass production penicillin. Capone was one of the first American. 1946. It's got to tell me at the top. when he
No,
died.
maybe it was the Escape from Alcatraz guys.
He died in 47. He got out in 39, but he
Okay.
died in 47.
Yeah, then it was open for a while longer. I don't know. Like, I just think of the booze thing, and you were talking about the Volstead Act, and then you started talking about weed. And again, I mean, we could talk about some weed movies maybe, but you know, one of the reasons, like, I don't even know, like, if you went down south, you said it'd be rougher, and that's probably true, except for the fact that most of these states have realized how much money there is
Money in making
in taxing marijuana. And I mean, because I never expected Utah to jump on board, and they're right there. I mean,
But just medical,
all of these,
right? Just medical.
I thought they did recreational too, but that could be. I mean, even medical, especially considering that you just need to go and get a doctor's prescription and then you can get it. That surprised the shit
You
out
know
of
what'll
me.
probably happen is that the Mormons will start saying you can smoke weed, and they'll start making money out of selling weed too.
Yeah, at the bake sales, they'll like make pop brownies and shit.
I'm so stoned.
So, what is another tax movie we want to talk about?
Well, I mean, like I said, we got to talk about Say Anything at least a little bit real quick. So
That was John Hughes too, right?
I don't know who actually. I don't know who actually. I don't think he. I don't know. I don't think John Hughes directed it. I just was looking at this just a minute ago. But it's about what Lloyd Dobler is a goofy ass kid that's graduating from a school where he's sort of looked at as a not very motivated underachiever. Cameron Crowe actually directed it, did.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting. And he asked this girl out, Diane Court, who's like the valedictorian of the school. She's super. Everybody kind of looks at her as sort of like a snobby, sort of out of Lloyd's league kind of girl. The movie is about the courtship and the interactions between Lloyd and Diane. Where at the end, I think he actually leaves because she ends up getting like a full ride to some school in the UK.
He goes with her, right?
I think so. Yeah, they're riding on the plane at the end. That's like the last scene. The closing scene is him sitting on the plane. But Diane's dad, Papa Court, does not like Lloyd. Thinks he's a loser. Thinks he's gonna mess with her opportunities in life because she's starting to kind of fall in love with John Cusack's character. That's Lloyd Dobler. Of course, there's the infamous scene where so she cuts it off with him because her dad puts a bunch of pressure on her to focus on her future. And there's the sign where he's the scene where he's standing there with the ghetto blaster playing "In Your Eyes," which totally like immortalized that song for anybody that grew up in the 1980s. But
It did a lot for that scene too. Like I've seen movies where they've got a
just huge illusions. That just like it's so funny because like the movie itself, Say Anything, it's all right. It's here and there. But it's not. I mean, it's just kind of goofy, But yeah, but the goofy fucking and it's such a like he's there. He's panning out, because it gets bigger. It's close in on him, and then he's got the. It's just. But I guess everybody loved it, so they make all the fucking allusions to it. But the thing is that Papa Court he runs an old folks home, and when people die, he steals their money, and he does not pay tax on that money. So it's all this money that he swipes. He buys all these things. The IRS picks up on the fact that he's buying all these things, and he ends up getting busted and sent to prison for it. So during this time period where her father is looking down his nose at Lloyd's character, the truth comes out about how he's been conducting his life, and he tries to justify his act, saying, "I did this all for you, so that you'd have all these opportunities." And she couldn't reconcile that. So either way, she loves Lloyd. She brings him with her, and it's a cute movie. But her dad is as much as he talks about Lloyd being a fuck up, her dad is as much of a fuck up as Lloyd ever was. It's pretty clear. So
And he ends up in jail.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know. They never talked about how long he was sentenced or anything, but because they go and visit him.
I don't think that she does. If I remember correctly, I think she gives a letter to Lloyd that he takes to the dad.
Is that what it was?
I think so. I can't remember perfectly, but I'm pretty sure that's what ends up happening because she's pissed at him. She's confused because he really was kind of a snob and he did not have the right to be. Diane's she's very naive. He has sheltered her a ton. So
I thought she was pissed because not only did he fucking, get busted for tax evasion, but he had fucking stolen from all of those old people. I mean, most of the time I think he waited for him to die.
that was what
But he was still stealing from their families or someone.
But so in the end, when he makes the argument to her when he gets in trouble for it, he says, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've seen it, but he says these old folks' kids didn't deserve the money. I was taking care of them. I was loving them. So that was how he justified it in his head, and he tried to justify it to her that way. But like you're saying, I mean, no matter what it was, all of the things that he did, this picture that she had of him in her head was totally fucking bastardized. So she couldn't, but he was going to go away for a long time. He stole a bunch of shit. And it was, I think, a federal prison on top of it because it was
of the tax evasion. Yeah.
So Say Anything was a good movie about taxes. And it was not just a plot mover. It was the way that everything sort of resolved.
It was a pretty decent movie, and I like watching it every now and then. I'm trying to remember because somebody in some movie that I've seen fairly recently, they did the Say Anything boombox thing, except because of where we are now with the way time has moved and technology and everything, they didn't have this huge ghetto blaster, and I think they held up just a fucking MP3 player or just a fucking speaker, but they held it above their head, and that shit made me laugh. But
that's it. I mean, we're in a different world now. But like the symbolic act is still the love act is the same.
Those two fell in love, and I know that this is that Hollywood thing again, but I mean, they fell in love real fucking quick. Like, I think Lloyd fell in love with her that night at the party. And then it took her a little longer to fall in love with Lloyd, but I think she was in love with him from like 3 days, dude. I mean,
well, but that's Romeo and Juliet love. I mean, it's the dumb love. It's the love where you don't really understand it, and you don't know enough about yourself to have a real relationship with a person.
You always talk about Zizek and V for Vendetta day 2. I wonder, like, Say Anything day 2, like, by the time they take that fucking 12-hour flight, they get off in fucking London and they're like, fuck you. Take your ghetto blaster and stick it up your ass. How am I going to get home? I'm in London. Not my fucking problem. Use your thumb. Anyway, so Say Anything. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that as a fucking tax movie either. I thought of it as a teenage love movie.
Like you said, John Hughes. I mean, it's that kind of that stereotypical, that group of people. Yeah.
Well, I thought it was John Hughes because that motherfucker loves John Cusack. I think Cusack's in every one of his movies.
No, I don't even know one John Cusack movie that he's in. A John Hughes.
16 Candles he's in.
He is in 16 Candles.
Okay. I know that there are other ones. God damn it.
I don't think you're gonna find any of them. I forgot about 16 Candles. But he's just got a bit part in 16 Candles, right? He's one of the...
Well, he's one of the nerd guys that... I wouldn't consider it a huge part.
Yeah, John Hughes. He wasn't in Breakfast Club. He wasn't in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He wasn't in Uncle Buck. He was not in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
I was thinking the older teenage ones, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, you are. It's okay. You've been wrong before. You're gonna be wrong again.
Oh, I'm sure. It happens from time to time.
I'm a dick. Curly Sue, Dutch. God, he did a lot. He did National Lampoon's Christmas. Oh, he wrote that. That's good. That's a fucking funny movie. He wrote Some Kind of Wonderful. I love that fucking movie too. Where is the ones he was a director for?
Okay, so while you're looking that shit up,
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna move to a different tax movie, maybe.
Weird Science. Okay.
He was in Weird
He
Science,
was not
right?
in Weird Science. No, that was those dumb kids and his older brother who was an asshole and the model that's married to
Oh yeah, Kelly
Steven
LeBrock.
Seagal. Yeah.
Kelly LeBrock. Okay, so the only other one I can think of is The Accountant.
Yeah, that's the last thing that I have here is The Accountant. So.
And that movie I thought was hysterical for a couple of reasons, but what really cracked me up, so the only thing that really has anything to do with taxes, because I mean essentially he is autistic. Ben Affleck plays this autistic guy who ends up helping large criminal organizations with their black money. That's the way they refer to it in the movie. I had never heard that term before, but
who taught him? What's that guy's name?
Jeffrey Tambor.
Tambor. Yeah, that's right. Yes,
Yeah, told him all about it and gave him the addresses. And since he's autistic, he could, remember all of these fucking addresses and whatever. But when he helps these farmers with their taxes, and the guy's like, you could come out and fish on our land anytime you want. And he's like, I don't fish, I shoot. And he goes, well, the farm's a great place to shoot. So he goes out to the farm and he's shooting. Well, the people that are trying to kill Ben Affleck end up going to this farm, and they don't realize that Ben Affleck is looking at the house and is about to kill these people. Well, he ends up getting in this big fight, and they're driving away, and he ends up killing this guy in front of this farmer husband and wife, and then he just waves at him and walks away. Like, he doesn't say, don't say anything or kill them or anything else. He just waves and walks away.
It's dude, like, because the movie's not about. It's about autism. I mean, the movie really is just about autism. I mean, the way it resolves all the stuff at the end when they're talking about the money, where it's coming from. Dude, in the beginning when he meets that fucking couple, right? Like, he's sitting there fucking talking to her. The funny thing is, as he's trying to coach them, like how to answer a question, how big is the so you make these necklaces? Oh, do you like my necklace? No, not particularly. Like, the way that he says it's like such a bitch slap, but it's not really, because seriously, it's just you think about Greta Thunberg and the way that she talks about climate issues. I mean, she basically will say to your face, this is the way that math works, this is the way that science works. If we don't deal with these questions, we're going to die. I don't know how to be sarcastic, I don't know how to be funny, I only know how to deal with things right up front. Deal with them or we're going to die. I mean, that's kind of the way that Ben Affleck's character approaches. I mean, do you like it? No, not particularly. And it's not like he says it in a mean way. He just says it in the most matter of fact way because he doesn't know how to fucking lie about anything like that. Having said that, though, so you make these and you sell these to people. Well, a little bit here and there, blah blah blah. So this is a business expense that we could look at. Well, she's like, I don't know, and he's like trying to get her to shut up. So how big is that room that you put these things together in? How big is your house first? Oh, it's 2,146 square feet. How big is the room that you put that stuff together? Oh, it's 200. He's shaking his head, but he's not shaking his head. He's like doing it in that way where he's like coaching, and the husband like sees what he's doing, and he kind of puts his thumb to the side and gives him I mean, that shit's fucking hilarious, dude.
Yeah, it cracked me up. I mean, when he's like, she goes, oh, I just, jump in the truck and zip over. And he's like, zip? Yeah, I drive to the bead store. Oh, the company car.
Yeah,
No, and the farmer's like,
yeah.
shh, shh, shh.
But he gets Ben Affleck's code at that point, and I mean it's funny because like his relationship to his father, right? His father is he's a military brat. Both him and his brother are military brats, and his dad does special ops stuff clearly. And he drags. I'm not certain how real that would be if you're doing special ops, dragging your kids around with you everywhere. And has them getting exact like I don't know where they're in Indonesia. That's right, because there's a the newspaper says Jakarta something or another,
Yeah,
and that indigenous Indonesian guy is beating the fucking shit out of these kids because the dad's telling them how to get to be tough. I'm not sure how real any of that is, but somehow or another, Ben Affleck has a divided consciousness to where he can be the person that he presents himself to normal people, but then he is this other thing, and it's only because of the survival. It seems like it's only because of the survival aspect that he had to negotiate by being his father's
I don't know, because
son.
his little brother ends up being a fucking like assassin slash hitman person too, and that could be because of the military stuff. It could have been because of all of the training they did, but it definitely wasn't because he was autistic.
Well, I just like the way that he had to divide his brain, the way that he gives all that money to the house that the parents took him, and his dad says, "What did he said? Um,
He said the world isn't, it
it's not going to be
isn't
soft
gonna
and cold and
soft.
cuzzy. Yeah, it's going to be tough and it's going to be cruel, brutish, and short." That's like
If
he's
bright
fucking
lights bother
Thomas.
him, if loud noises bother him, then he needs more of that,
So
not
much so that
less.
he was when he's alone in his room, he's got the fucking lights flashing on and off
Yeah,
because his dad put him through. That's what they said. His dad was a psychological uh,
yeah, psyops guy.
psyops guy. Yeah.
But that when you talked about the Indonesia part, I mean, because that guy's like, okay, we've had enough. Tomorrow's another day, and he goes, no, keep going. And the guy's like, no, tomorrow's another day. And he goes, I can't remember. He said something, and he
He
goes,
says
well, if that was the case, then you'd have blood and
blood and
snot
snot
coming
coming.
out of
Yeah.
your nose,
Yeah.
and not them. So they're all laying around, all fucking beat up,
And
and
Ben Affleck gets up and says he tells him to just go on.
yeah,
And that's a weird scene when he looks at the Indonesian guy. He doesn't want the Indonesian guy to get in trouble.
I think he was protecting him, yeah,
Yeah, which is fucking.
because the dad stood up and started walking over.
He knew exactly which is fucking weird, dude. Really fucking weird. But that's why he put so much money into that fucking other spot because like autism is one of those things that what the guy that owns that house at the end, because the girl that he had the interaction with that found the fucking puzzle piece
Yeah,
at the beginning, she comes up to him and says, no, she did. So that family comes in with their son, and the son goes down and he talks about the computer and that the parents that guy the father of their kid is a computer guy and knows what this computer is and he's like who the fuck paid for that and he's like it's an anonymous donor I don't fucking know but it was so like they're walking across the lawn the daughter or the lady who had the interaction with Ben Affleck 30 years beforehand is talking and shows the kid how they can talk to each other. Meanwhile, he's like, we think about autism as a deficiency, and that's not the right way to talk about or think about autism. We just don't understand. We have certain dispositions that make us think that intelligence functions in a specific way, and our biases are straight towards that, which is fucked up. Autism, these people might actually be thinking on a higher level than we are, and we need to consider, I mean, again, like all of the things that he does throughout the film, it's almost like there's two movies that are happening at the same time. I mean, it's a critique of the way that people think about autism. And then there's this, him and his fucking brother and the stupid shit that plays out in that. Having to kill the Mormon guy. What's his name?
John Lithgow.
John Lithgow, yeah.
And that part was hilarious too, because he's telling him how important he is. I save lives. Do you know what that's like? And he goes,
Boom. Love it. It was funny.
shoots him right between the eyes.
Yeah. Ben Affleck, his autism excelled. He could kill a motherfucker. without too much difficulty.
No, I mean, I've seen that movie multiple times, and again, it's because it's that action funny type of thing. And I don't even know if it's supposed to be funny. I'm thinking certain parts are supposed to be funny, but
The scene
dude,
where he's talking to the farmers at the beginning, that has to be fun, intended to be funny, because that's a fucking funny scene.
yeah, I would guess, but I don't know because I think Sling Blade is hilarious, and people tell me that that's not a funny movie.
That's because there's okay. I'm judging motherfuckers right now. That's because they're fucking stupid. Because Sling Blade is a fucking funny movie. Now there's an air of tragedy, and there's like what happens to his sibling. You know, his parents are sick, fucked up motherfuckers. But him taking that fucking who was it? Dwight Yoakam? Is that who plays that role? Yeah,
Yeah,
like what he does to him. You know, dude, that movie is hilarious as shit, dude. Billy
it's
Bob
awesome.
Thornton did a really. I mean, he wrote it, he directed it, he played the fucking Sling Blade guy. That's a fucking great film, dude, and it is funny as shit. The kid that played Carl did a fucking great job in that movie.
Well, I thought that it was a great movie. Not to do with taxes or hitmen or anything else, but again, I mean, I don't know when I laugh at parts that happen in like The Accountant. I don't know if I mean I know what I think is
Funny,
funny,
queer, funny.
like them taters with some mustard, a little bit of mustard. Um, I don't know if what I think is funny is just like offensive to most people because, like I said, I thought Sling Blade was fucking hysterical, and I've been told that I was wrong, and it's not funny.
Dude, it's hilarious. John Ritter's character's fucking funny, dude. Dwight Yoakam's character is just fucking weird. Like, he deserves to get fucking hit over the head with a fucking lawnmower blade. Like, I don't know what else to say. You know,
He was a
you
fucking dickhead.
you terrorize that fucking mom. You terrorize that boy. You know, they have nowhere to go. They're totally dependent on him.
That's one of my favorite parts of the whole movie, though, is when Dwight Yoakam and the mom are in bed,
And he's
and
standing
Billy
there.
Bob Thornton is
What
standing
the
there, and
fuck are
he's
you
like,
doing?
"We don't need retards in the middle of the night standing there with hammers and shit."
Yeah, the wokeness thing. Look, we like respect, love. You know, absolutely. I'm there. I'm all about it. But we don't need. Yeah, dude. It's just fucking funny, and we need to like back to the humor shit and the comedy, and we need to laugh at these things. We need. And look, dude. My family's all from Eastern Colorado. You know, I call myself a hillbilly. You know, like Jeannie was giving me shit the other day because she said you use that word a lot. I said I'm a fucking hillbilly. What do you want me to fucking say? You know, I'm a little slow on the uptake. You know.
Yeah, I get it. But, well, I don't know. Maybe people just don't have a fucking sense of humor. Because
Don't ever talk to me again.
I didn't think they
I'll
were telling
fucking
me
kill
that
you.
because they were woke. But maybe that was the issue. Maybe I'm slow.
Well, you just don't think about the same thing first that those people think about. I mean, like you're this former relations person. Every time you said anything in that tone, you know, she was correcting you, you know. And sometimes, yeah, you can be a little bit insensitive. Like I get that, you know. But there are still some things that need to be said, and they need to be said in a certain way.
Oh,
And
I
there,
wasn't talking about her though. She
no,
wasn't the one that told me that it wasn't funny.
but there are. I mean, it's an example that can be
Yeah.
applied in that moment. So
Um. Okay, so that really kind of was the last tax movie, or
I could do a cover of Taxman. You know that tax song by the Beatles.
go ahead, dude.
No, I don't think that's gonna happen.
We've got some time to kill.
How were we? We're about 46, 47, something like that.
We're at almost 50.
Okay, so
Should we just do like dead air for 15
yeah,
minutes or
15
so?
minutes. Let me ask you a question. Rome, right? So did they deal with because he was so the ginger that's in Rome. Did he collect taxes?
No, when he was doing collections, he was collecting for one of the basically a loan shark on the Aventine.
Okay.
So
It's like in Lamb, right? When you read the book, right? You remember Matthew when he left his job and his mom got all fucking pissed at him for leaving his job. He was a tax collector. I mean, somehow or another in Rome in that time period, was that something that they ever brought out in that show? I watched it. It's been a long time since I watched it.
they never really talked about it in. So they talked about taxes more along the lines of like the food type thing as opposed to a coin type
You're going to
thing.
give us a portion of your crops, okay?
Yeah, and they went and they taxed Egypt
Because
because of the grain.
Because it helps them to feed their armies, and that's why it worked back then. Because the whole point in Rome was to be able to feed the armies through whatever it was that you were taxing people of.
Yeah. So I think that's the main reference I can think of is when they went, because first Caesar went over there, and he was collecting taxes in the form of not only wheat but money, and since they didn't have all of the money, he wanted more wheat. And then after Caesar was dead, Mark Antony went over there.
Started fucking Cleopatra.
Well, right, but he didn't start fucking her right away. They went to get more wheat because basically all of Rome was starving at the time, and
so Cleopatra had
crime was going up and everything else.
So Cleopatra had a leg up on him in terms of power. Like she had a way to kind of like push back a little bit in that moment.
Yeah, because of supply and demand. But I mean, there's a lot of the shit in the show that they probably didn't show, or maybe they showed more of certain things that they didn't have to. I mean, most of those characters in the show were real characters, but like, so the ginger and I don't know why I can't remember their names, but
the other big guy that was with him all the time.
Yeah,
he was funnier than shit.
So
dude.
he was played by Ray Stevenson, and
that was the guy that played the Russian that in the Ukrainian hitman guy in Dexter, isn't it? Is that the same guy?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay, keep going. Sorry.
But like both of those two were soldiers under Caesar and then again under Antony, but they showed them, especially the ginger, rising up through the ranks to where eventually he ended up being a senator, and that didn't happen, or at least historians say that it probably didn't occur in the way that they made it sound.
His name.
Yeah.
Lucius Veranius is Kevin McKidd's name, and he played Isaac Serco in. So go on. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. But I mean, the only real reference to taxes I can think of are the ones where they were talking to Egypt. And then because the Aventine was basically run by these gangs or the mafia or a syndicate of sorts, they taxed certain business owners stuff so that they could pay their soldiers. So those are the only references to taxes I can think of.
You know what's disappointing about Rome is that they don't have a reference to Gaius Octavia of the Teutonii.
I still think you should have named his fucking kid that.
Yeah, I know.
You can't just fucking name your kid Gaius.
The younger the younger daughter or the older daughter.
She ended up playing in the Breaking Bad.
Did she really?
Yeah.
Oh, she was just absolutely smoking in that show.
Yeah, I liked her. But she like broke away from her mom and ended up going to orgies and all kinds of stuff. It was a crazy show.
It was, dude. That was like a 4.5 boob show.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of that stuff they probably didn't show as much as it actually happened historically.
Yeah, well, you can only shock people so much, you know. I mean, because there's no doubt I'm surprised that because after the 2 seasons, like and the second season was just as good as the first season was. And I know that the production costs were huge because this. I mean, it was shot really big. It was very like Gladiator, with old what's the director's name? The brothers.
Scott.
Yeah, Scott.
Tony.
Yeah,
well,
Tony.
No, but Tony is
Ridley,
the one
Ridley
I like.
Scott.
Ridley is the one that.
But it was the way that Gladiator was shot was similar to the way that it was big sets, and it was no fucking around. I wish they would have gone a little bit deeper. I would have liked to have seen them do something with like Marcus Aurelius and stuff. So
yeah, that I don't understand why they fucking end any of these shows. I guess cost could be a consideration, viewership.
I read an article. It was straight cost on behalf of HBO. They said this has been a super popular show, but if we want to keep doing it right, it's going to cost a stupid amount of money, and it's as big as HBO's financial capabilities were. They couldn't run it past the second season and get what they needed to get out of it to justify it.
How come all people in Rome had British accents? I don't know the answer to that question.
That might be the guy that was the newsreader. I like him. I've seen him in a bunch of other weird shows where his like bigness and his big headness and his big double chinness, is like perfect for those time periods because he's just a weasel,
And those, again, they were pretty accurate historically. That newsreader, they never said his name, but that was a real position. Yeah, I'm sad that they let that one go. I watch that one almost as much as I do like Deadwood or Game of Thrones or Sopranos.
I never have even watched Deadwood. I should probably watch Deadwood at some point in time.
Dyro started watching Deadwood because I, was always talking about it, and he goes, "Dude, I know why you like it, because they use the word cocksucker and motherfucker all the time."
That isn't the only reason, but it definitely helps.
It does help, for sure.
I still think that like I should watch the episode where they confuse Calamity Jane for a guy. That one I really think would be fucking. that would be funny.
It's funny, but I still I have this argument with people all the time, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about the Wild West or fucking Rome or right before the Revolutionary War. I always get this argument that people didn't start using dirty language until contemporary times, just recently. And the only reason that they're using it is because poor family values, lack of religion.
Who says that?
Well, my grandma said it to me, which I think is weird. Well,
your grandma had a dirty fucking mouth, dude.
Kind of sometimes. Most of the time she'd say, "Don't talk like that," and she'd smack my hand.
No, she'd say, "Don't talk like that, cocksucker."
But I don't know. I think people have been cursing for a really long time. I don't know of anybody that came up with their own dirty words.
No, these are handed down for generations and
right.
generations. Why do you think that? Why did they name his accounting thing ZZZ Accounting? Because he wanted to be.
Because he didn't want to have any customers. He didn't want people calling him and saying, "Hey."
The last person to look for in the book.
Right.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
That's why they talked shit about him when she had that guy, because she had all her. I don't know if he was with Homeland or whatever, some department within the government. She had him track down all of these people that used famous mathematicians' names.
Yeah.
And then she was looking for a certain income within all of these different. And he said, well, there's two of them. And there's this one, and he doesn't follow because he only has an income of $75,000. And that was him because
he had the shell corporations that were tied, or the shell companies at least that were tied to it.
And he said, hold on a minute, why ZZZ Accounting? Why would they? That's not a good listing for the phone book. And that's when she said, well, look at, Paul's Laundromat and whatever Chinese food and all of those places. And she said, that's the guy. That's got to be the guy. But that's the only reason I could think of why you do ZZZ accounting is because you didn't want people calling and saying, hey, how much do you charge for this?
That's a good answer. I like that answer. I mean, and according to his mathematical disposition, that is a linguistic way of applying a mathematical concept that would be almost perfect.
But he did have a receptionist, which I thought was weird.
Because he's coming and going a lot.
Yeah, why even hire anybody? Why not just have ZZZ accounting and
Maybe it's just because of the cosmetics of it. He just wants to make it look as normal as it possibly can be. But that person would know too much about what he's doing.
yeah, like why the fuck is he gone all the time or whatever. But so that's the accountant. And Rome
for that matter.
Yeah.
4.5 breasts. Thank you very much.
I would still recommend checking out Blues Brothers for the soundtrack for the music in it.
Not because of the wonderful allusions to taxes or comments about taxes.
Right.
The penguin is fucking funny. Everybody's funny. Aretha Franklin's funny when she fucking gets in Matt Guitar Murphy's face and says, "You better think about what you're trying to do to me."
She was in the second one too.
She was in the second one too. Yeah, I said that when we
Except by then they made a bunch of money and she was like part owner of a auto dealership.
Well, that's the part that she played? Mm-hmm. Well, she was the money too. Because she owned the diner too.
Oh, that's right. She did own the diner.
They said that the maitre d' had a good job, and they said that Matt Guitar Murphy had a good job, and you're not going to be able to pry him away. And they're like, we'll see about that. It's 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas and half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark outside, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it. There. That was from memory that time. Is that better?
That was way better. So those two, I wouldn't necessarily recommend Happy Gilmore.
Dude, it's a stoner movie. Like if you're sitting around, like, and you just want to watch a brain dead thing. I've watched it once. I've only watched it once. I mean, dude, seriously, like the whole thing about Carl Weathers having his hand bit. He was a great golfer, and he had his hand bit off by a fucking alligator, and then he dies and comes back to talk to Happy Gilmore in his fucking like dream or whatever it was. I mean, yeah, dude, it's some hacky ass shit. No pun intended, but it's funny-ish. But there are several other better movies that we talked about. Definitely. Shawshank Redemption's always it's in my top 5. The Blues Brothers is funny. Giuseppe. You do. Yeah.
The Untouchables is good.
It's an important film, I think, historically.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say from a historical perspective.
Dude, I think The Accountant is better. It's way better than I thought it was going to be.
I like The Patriot if you take out of like that weird white guilt thing where he frees the black people. I thought The Patriot was pretty good. And I'm not saying that white people don't have anything to feel bad about.
Say Anything's a good movie.
I like Say Anything too.
The
even
Firm
though
is
I
not
thought
a good
that it
movie.
was fucking John Hughes. Yeah, I would not recommend watching The Firm. If you're gonna watch a fucking John Grisham movie or a movie based after one of his books, I would say A Time to Kill.
That's my favorite. The
Rainmaker. Star Chamber's pretty good.
I've not seen that one.
I think that's the one where the New Orleans hitman is trying to kill the kid from Tennessee. Maybe.
The kid from
No, that's the Star Chamber's the one where Gene Hackman is in jail. Or in the on death row, I think. But any one of those movies is better than The Firm.
Yeah, Firm sucks. Yeah, but Braveheart's definitely always watchable. Always.
Yeah, and I still like the Corsican Brothers, even though I can't tell you for sure what it has to do with taxes other than the French Revolution.
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. So, and I'll just have to go with you on The Patriot because I kind of don't like Mel Gibson. He has a certain type, the way that he structures things, and it gets. I don't know. He seems kind of preachy in the way that he presents things sometimes.
Well, and I know that Whatever that fucking Jesus movie he did, I'm guessing that was pretty preachy.
Yeah. I didn't watch that one either. I missed that one.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I know everybody was raving about it.
I don't think everybody was. I think a certain demographic of people were probably raving about it.
That's probably it. The same Mormons that are selling pot brownies and this weird thing. Okay, so we're over an hour now. I'm not sure how much more time we can kill
I'm taxed
on this. Okay, so do you know what we're going to talk about next time?
Yeah, we're going to do the thing about we're going to do vigilantism.
Ah, yeah, that's right. I forgot.
And that's an easy one in both ways. We can talk about like the sort of like psychopathy of it, like the way that it is so like embedded in our consciousness.
And just our fucking society.
That's
Like
what
I said,
yeah.
I mean the fucking people going down to Arapahoe County to kill Italians.
In a number of different ways. Yeah, I mean January 6th was a serial activity. I mean that was not meaningful. It was like Jerry Springer revolution. I mean, and we will say we will bid Jerry Springer farewell since he died a few days ago.
Oh, did
at
he?
the age of 79? Yeah, Jerry Springer has departed the mortal coil. So, but yeah, that was like But no matter what, there's a lot of stuff that in movies. Obviously, we can go on ad nauseum, like millions, like the Dexter from a million different things, like the way that people just get obsessed with the concept of being. Like, we love the concept of justice in this society, but we don't really know how to relate to it. We don't even know what it really means, I think. So,
That's what I was going to say is I don't think most people can describe what justice means to them.
yeah, vigilantism as a concept is.
I'm probably one of those people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, me too. I mean, dude, come on. I've never made an attempt to do anything to anybody, but I've definitely had fantasies about killing people that need to have justice brought to them. I'm not asking for anyone to agree with me on that. I'm just saying that.
No, I was just sitting there trying to think if I could define my own definition of justice.
Well, you have some time to think about that.
Yeah, I know. I'm still thinking though. All right, shortbusdebateclub at yahoo.com.
720-334 roll bitches.
All right, we're out of here. We'll see you next time.
Later.